Hello, this is Kenneth 14621, and I just want to make a video about the fact that, and I don't want people to think that this is a slap in the face, and that I'm just talking about, I just want to stand up and just talk crap about, you know, people getting shot by the police, or stand up and say something, say something about the anthem protests. Not only about that, but I just want to say that the NFL is not a juggernaut that cannot possibly go down or ever cease to be. And so I want to start with this. Okay, you know, the NFL may cease to be, right? And if you want to sit there and laugh and say, ha ha, you're crazy, that'll never happen, that's not the truth, okay? If you go back in history and you look at games and stuff like that, the NFL hasn't really been a game for that long. I mean, the NFL, let's give it 100 years, has been a game for 100 years. Man, like, you look at the Roman Olympics and what is it that those gladiator games they had, those went on for many hundreds of years. They went on for long enough to be the same type of thing that the NFL is. I mean, they were huge games and huge things, and they died. And if you go back and look in history, if you think of it now, it seems like a crazy thing that can never happen. But when you go back and look at history, there were lots of games like, those gladiator games. They started and they lasted a long time, and people loved them. I mean, I don't know how long they lasted, but maybe hundreds of years, and eventually they ended. You know, I mean, the NFL is not some juggernaut that can take any blow. If you had a commissioner of the NFL who didn't really care about the NFL and didn't put forth any effort, if you had a commissioner who thought, oh man, I'm the commissioner of the NFL, I have it made, and just commenced to partying like there's nothing he can do to end the NFL, like he's just a juggernaut for all time's sake, the NFL would get ran in the dirt. It's time we as fans stop not caring about what happens to the NFL. That's why I'm making these videos and I'm speaking out against some of the things that I think are wrong, is not to bring down the NFL, but to preserve it. And maybe it will last. Okay, so there have been tons of change, and the NFL is not the same that it's always been, I'm telling you. And I think the changes that we've been making are starting to ruin the game. Like, back in the old days, and it can change back the other way. It just depends on which commissioner you get. See what I'm saying? Like, so let me see here. So we had Paul Tagliabue, NFL commissioners. Okay. Like, this isn't the same commissioner who's been the commissioner through the 90s or through the 80s and stuff like that. We've had lots of different commissioners. Okay, so first they had, we've had lots of them. Like, I'm looking here. We had Elmer Layden, Bert Bell, Austin Gunzel, Pete Rozelle. That was till 1989. I still remember him. And we had Paul Tagliabue. And I don't think that any of these commissioners were as bad as the one we have now. I may be wrong, okay? But Roger Goodell has been from 2006 to present. Because first of all, I don't agree with a lot of things that have been happening. I think they've been making the game too soft. Okay? There are risks with any occupation you do. I don't care what it is. It's not only risks, making money is a sacrifice. Now, these NFL players want to make, I'm not saying the players want it, but some of them want to make money without a sacrifice. Or that's what the commissioner is trying to make this about. To just prance out there, play flag football, don't even touch each other, don't even practice, don't even have padded practice, don't even hit each other, not suffer a single injury the whole time you play for 15, 20 years, and just ride off into the sunset $100 million richer. And let me tell you something, $100 million just don't come that easy. There are people out there risking their lives underwater, and I'm going to talk about welding because my dad was a welder and I know about that. There are people out there risking their lives welding underwater, making $25, $30 an hour. I mean, that doesn't even add up to $100,000 a year. And welding underwater is far, far, far more risky and dangerous than playing in the NFL. It's so dangerous, nobody will even do it. But you have people doing it. For that amount of money, risking their life, it is extremely dangerous. It's like underwater diving. I mean, you're not going to work. Like, people who do it just do it once or twice or a couple times. You're not going to work and have a whole career, like your whole life, 40 years, without dying doing this profession. I mean, the percentage of people that do that for their entire career and don't die is like 20%. See what I'm saying? That's the way life is. And welding, let's talk about just welding above water. You're breathing in fumes all day, okay? Every time you put that rod to a piece of iron to weld it to another one, fumes come up. You breathe fumes all your life. You crouch all the time. Your knees are going to go bad. If you're pitching and you're a pitcher, your arm goes bad. You know what I mean? I mean, it's a sacrifice. When I was young, okay, I was trying to get I was working for a temp agency for a little while. And you go out and you do these easy jobs and you don't make a lot of money. But there was this one job where it's where you clean up the cement, right? You're in a cement factory and the cement goes up the belt and into the mixer or whatever, and cement falls off of that. And there's cement dust all in the air. And your job is to stand out there all day with a power washer and just spray that cement off of it. It's a very, very hazardous job. Think about that. When cement gets wet, it hardens, and you're breathing that in your lungs all the time. And anyway, so you're doing this all day, 8 hours a day. And these cement factories, I mean, they run like 24 hours a day. They have guys working different shifts doing this. One of the hardest, most dangerous jobs, and guess what? You get paid some of the best money out of any other jobs. The harder the job is, the more money you get paid. That's just the way it is. But, see, and so to say that, the NFL's different, it's just ridiculous. Any job, you have these old people who've done it all their life, and they complain about, I got arthritis, or, I got health problems, I got this, I got that. They complain about that because every job has hazards. And when you've done it for a long time, you're going to have problems like that. Like my father, right? He welded all his life. And he's always bending over and lifting and doing stuff like that. NFL isn't even as hard as most jobs. Like, my dad's got gout so bad he can't even get out of the bed. Literally. And there's tons of people like that. The NFL, you're only playing 15 years. At the max. It's not like you're doing this your whole life. And then you have a job in an office sitting behind a desk analyzing the game. See what I'm saying? But these players, and every single job has that. Old guys that want to sue their job because they've got bad health problems because they worked all their life. And they have problems just like every job has. Every job. I don't care what it is. I don't care what it is. Even if it's sitting in an office all day. If you're, let's say you're a computer engineer, you have to sit behind a computer. And computer engineers make a lot of money. So the more money you make, really, you think computer engineering is an easy job, the more you have to sacrifice. Those guys are working like 80 hours a week. And they gain tons of weight because they're just sitting all the time for 80 hours a week. You think somebody's going to pay you more than that without that type of sacrifice? It's ridiculous. So you want to come into the game of football and play football without any sacrifice, without getting injuries, without even getting a ding, and make $10 million a year? That's ridiculous, friend. I don't think the NFL is rough enough. You want to say the NFL is rough for making that kind of money? It's not rough. So Roger Goodell goes to making it even easier. You've got guys playing a sport where you only play 16 games. You literally only go to work once a week when other people are working 7 days a week or 5 days a week. And, I know there's hazards to everything, Even dental hygiene. I know someone who's a dental hygienist for about 20 years, and their hands started getting crippled. If they would have continued to do it, they would have had a crippled hand that they couldn't move for the rest of their life. And when you start doing that, you think it's easy. All I have to do is sit in this office and scrape teeth all day. But guess what? Scraping teeth 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, for 20 years? Repetitive motion, friend. That's why they get paid. It's a sacrifice. So instead of Roger Goodell knowing that and saying, look, dude, if you don't want to play, don't play. You're only working once a week. He gives in to these demands. And he starts kicking the ball off from the 35 and takes away one of the most exciting plays in football. I'm sorry. I played football my whole life. I played Pee Wee League. I played junior high. I played high school. I played semi-pro. I played a lot of football. And you get the snot knocked out of you, and you tough it out. You stand up, you have to go out for a game or two, you get dazed or whatever for a little while, and that's it. But anyways, though, so he gives in to these demands. And now, a game where they used to practice in pads 5 days a week, the whole season, the whole off season. Off season starts months before the season. Season lasts 4, 5, maybe 6 months. Then 2, 3 months a training camp. That's 5, 6, 7, 8 months. 8 months of padded practice. And people used to do it, friend. People used to do it and play long, illustrious 15-year careers. And you change it to where you can only have like 5 padded practices all year. Now the NFL could take certain minor changes. I'll agree with that. Because it is kind of a juggernaut. I mean, people love it a lot. But when you're drastically changing the league, going from like 800 padded practices to 5, that's too drastic of a change. I'm not saying everything that Roger Goodell did was bad, but he's changing the league too drastically. You know, I mean, and just, I mean, you know, I think that in the future, if the NFL gets really bad ownership, that it could cease to be, just like a lot of other sports, just like happened to a lot of other sports. You know, that's how drastically he's changing the league. I mean, that is like a seriously drastic change, you know. And like, why would you do that when you're making all this money? You've got it made in the shade. All you've got to do is just put forth effort and go to work every day just like every other person does, 9 to 5. All you got to do is keep the league intact the same way it is, and it'll be just as successful as it's always been. You know? I mean, it's just, to me, it's just too much. You know, I played all that football. I got injuries all the time. Some of these injuries that these players go out for, I stayed in the game. You know, I mean, I had shin splints. My ankles were hurting so bad I had to lace them up every game. You know, I mean, but I don't understand these players that play and they're pissed off and mad that they played. I'm glad I played. I'm glad it was fun, you know. People spent their whole lives trying to make this game. I'm not going to disrespect it. You know, I mean, to me, and if I played a game and it made me super rich, I would be glad and grateful to that game. You know, I think these guys are hungry for money. And they know the NFL has a lot of money. And they want to take them down. They want to get billions of dollars. Because most of these athletes, like the NBA, man, like 50% of the people that play the game are bankrupt within so many years after they play. I mean, like, I don't understand that. You know, so... And, you know... just drastic changes have been going on. And like whether you're talking about Ezekiel Elliott or Tom Brady or whatever, punishments are coming down now in the NFL that piss players off bad. And punishments and stuff like that didn't used to happen in the NFL. You know what I'm saying? And these people you're messing with and punishing and fooling around with are owners that are richer than you. And maybe these players aren't as rich as you, but they're still millionaires. And they can cause a little hell if they want to. You know? I mean, you know, so I make this video just as a warning that I could see in the future the NFL getting totally ran into the dirt and ceasing to be. And I just want to warn people out there not to think that The NFL is a juggernaut. And you have plays like you can't even hit a guy anymore. You can't even barely even hit him. You know? Like one of the rules that I just thought was ridiculous. I mean, I don't know. It just comes down to this, dude. Everybody else in America is out there risking their neck, doing things that they know is going to hurt them, sacrificing to make money. Okay? And you want to go out there and play a game for your job, and you don't want there to be any sacrifice. You don't want there to be any possible way in hell that you can get hurt. You want the game to be so soft and so patty cake that there's no possible way in hell that you can get hurt. All I gotta say is, guess what, dude? That's what everybody wants. And there's people out there on the street without a job. And there's people in Mexico using mercury, putting their hands in mercury and fishing gold out of it just to mine gold, just to make a little bit of money. I mean, there's people in poor countries making their kids crush rocks all day for pennies an hour. The average wage I read for crushing rocks in Africa that a lot of kids do per hour is like 3 pennies an hour. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I think for the payoff, for how much money you're getting for playing the NFL, it's worth it to go through all that stuff. If the game were the same that it was in the 90s, it would still be worth it. I mean, that's just what I think. When you're talking about $1 million or millions of dollars, you have to put that in perspective. You have to put in perspective just how much money $1 million is. The average salary in America, which is like the richest country on the face of the planet, is only $50,000 a year. Okay? That would be 20 years. Your average person would have to work to make $1 million. 20 years. So you've got people that are 21 years old that already have as much money as it would take a normal person to work 20 years to get. And the average salary is like in the millions. This is probably a low estimate, but I'll put $3 million a year as your average salary. And it takes 20 years to make $1 million. 20, 40, 60. You have someone 20 years old in 1 year making as much money as it would take the average person to work 60 years to make. And they're not satisfied with what they would have to do. Let me tell you something. For $1 million, I would try to ski down Mount Everest. For $1 million, I would let a horse kick me right in the ribs and stomp me half to death. I would do literally almost anything for $1 million. And most people would too. You've got people on Fear Factor eating cockroaches and balancing on high wires for less money than that. I mean, you've got people riding bulls for less money than that. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Some things are a hazard of the game. And like the Cowboys today, they played their game, and they had this left tackle in there, Chaz Green, right? And he was totally unprepared. He wasn't the right man for the job. The guy got a record 6 sacks in one game. He had 5 sacks. Troy Aikman said that was the worst performance he had ever seen from an offensive lineman in his entire life. Now, why weren't the Cowboys able to see, and then they put in the guy behind that guy, his name was Bell, and he did way better than that guy. And they weren't able to see that because they had non-padded practices. They weren't able to see who was better or who was not. So you've got guys going through a whole year without even padded practices, only playing a real football game once a week, 16 times, for millions of dollars. I mean, it's at some point, Roger Goodell, you have to quit softening up the game, okay? Because it earns money. The true way to soften up the game, I mean, it doesn't even matter, but if you want to do it, if you ask me, it would be more advanced pads and stuff like that, and requiring players to wear certain types of pads. I mean, you could have players going out there in entire full spacesuits with shock absorbers and everything, and not even getting hurt the whole time. But the way he has gone about it is totally the wrong way. It's the wrong way. And people would pay to see that. Guys in spacesuits, but at least they're hitting each other hard. No, but the one thing that makes football fun, hitting hard, has been taken out of the game. So, anyways, though, that's my opinion. You have a guy 21 years old in 1 year earning what it would take the average American citizen to make. It would take them 60 years. And some kid in some poor country that crushes rocks, it would take him an eternity to make that much. And you're complaining too much. Welders breathe in fumes all day, every day, that are proven to cause cancer and all kinds of stuff. And they still make them do it. And they're still not regulating it because it has to be done. Buildings have to be built. Things have to be built for our civilization to survive. And anyways, though, that's just my opinion. Alright, then there you go. Kenneth 14621 signing off.